watching Weasel News.
Okay, well, welcome to this July town hall. I'm State Representative Jimmy Dimmick. I'll be hosting the town hall today. Along with me, I'd like to welcome Lieutenant Governor Damien Keys, as well as Representatives Yuri Devlin and Castor Taylor. They are to my right. Mr. Taylor has the blue hair, and Mr. Devlin is right here in the gray and white shirt. Lieutenant Governor Damien Keys, for those who have not met him, is right here to my right-hand side. First order of announcement, just to let you know, there was, if you have not seen the minutes of our last assembly, there was votes cast to obviously replace the positions that were left vacant. Governor Rai Rai has nominated Silky Valentino, who sends his regrets for tonight. He cannot be here, and also Castor Taylor in replacement of Norman Aoki and Morgan Ford that resigned. Past that, we have elected some new positions, which are the positions of the Secretary of State, which is Yuri Devlin. Your new state treasurer is Mr. Castor Taylor, and I, Jimmy Dimmick, I'm the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. So we'd like to welcome you to this meeting. We are very happy to see the attendance that we have tonight. And we're going to start with a bit of a legislative update. I'm going to turn it over to Castor Taylor, if you have anything to bring up and to update the citizens on in terms of your portfolios.
Not currently, just obviously received my access to our treasury. Everything looks good in regards to that. I've already received a few invoices that have been addressed. So those of you who have submitted, be on the lookout for those. And then gathering currently information in regards to some future potential legislation that has been brought to my attention from some of the citizens here. So I'm just looking to gather some of that information together to have it proposed.
Perfect. Thank you, Representative Taylor. Representative Devlin, the floor is yours.
Quick updates. We held a vote, just honorary vote for Ms. Katerina Labau for state public defender. She recently quit the public defender's office and was no longer able to be granted that role, so we all voted on that just to clean it up. We recently had a vote for the new state public defender, where it was unanimously in favor of Adrian Jacks and taking over that position. HR 255, Bright Ideas, Greener Future, was passed unanimously. That will help provide light bulbs and other greener measures for the state, as well as HR 254, which was the articles of impeachment against Tavelar, which was unanimously voted as nay.
Perfect. Thank you, Representative Devlin. And so that's kind of the summary of our last meeting that went close to 2 hours. It was a busy one in terms of votes and whatnot. We are actively working on some minor criminal code updates that'll be coming. And we always ask the citizens to bring forth any comments or concerns when it comes to anything that might require a change. On the side of the governor and lieutenant governor, I don't know if you have anything to bring up there, Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, I'm gonna clarify something that Yuri said. Kat did not quit; she was fired. She just came out after she was officially relieved of her duties by Rai Rai by an official email the day after, saying that she did quit. Though I just wanted to make sure I clarified that. Additionally, Other than the mention of Adrian Jack, the only other thing I want to mention was that we put out the official announcement for the security infrastructure patrols the other day, and anyone that is a security company has a proper security clearance from DACL can reach out to me until Friday to if they have an interest in wanting to take up the patrols. Currently, we have 2 interested, and once I do get all the interests, I'll set up meetings with them and the state representatives, and then we will vote on who would officially get the bid for the patrol. Other than that, I'm not 100% sure if there was anything else our governor wanted to share. He's having a little bit of trouble getting a ticket to get on the plane to get into the city today. But he did mention to me that we are having a meeting to discuss the next potential head of SAS, given what has recently occurred in with that department. Other than that, I don't think I have anything new to share.
Okay, perfect. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for the update on behalf of the executive branch. We can keep going further around the table if there's any updates or anything that our partners would like to share. I see that our policing partners have come into the room. I see representatives from the LSPD and Major Crimes Division. So if there's anything that wants to be brought up, feel free to do so.
I don't think we have much to bring up, except for if anyone has any complaints or issues, they're always more than welcome to ask us here or come to the station and file them directly. We're always open to listen to people's concerns.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Anything else from our policing partners? Okay, that'll sum it up. Great attendance tonight. I'm sure some of you would like to have a discussion or bring forth ideas or concerns or whatever you might want to bring up. So at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to the people in attendance and see if there's anybody that might have something that they would like to question, to talk about, or to bring forth. And so just feel free to either raise your hand or take the floor.
I do. Chelsea Lafayette, the Daily Globe. So last town hall, the subject of copyright legislation was brought forward, and some citizens have complained about elements, such as, for example, the prison sentence associated with that. Or there were also individuals from the music industry who weren't satisfied with the lack of differentiation between fully owning a song or having leased a beat, for example, in the case of rap songs. Has any work been done towards updating the copyright legislation?
The work on the copyright legislation right now is still a work in progress. I personally have not heard any of these concerns. I'm kind of shocked, to say the least, that the media would know what the concerns are, but yet the people that are in charge of representing the people and writing those bills have not heard much on it. I don't know if Representative Devlin or Taylor has brought this up.
I did receive a text, but I'm in the beginning stages of getting through the wording that I would want to clean up or add, so I haven't brought it up to anybody just yet.
I would be more than happy to sit with you and share my notes after the meeting if you want.
If I may, Representative Dimick, I was one of the people at the last town hall who mentioned concerns with the copyright process. I spoke with Representative Devlin about it, and I believe Governor Avery as well. At the time, Representative Devlin and the governor assured me that they had saw that my concerns and the concerns that other citizens of the state shared with the legislation as written, which includes a prison sentence of 20 months for each instance of copyright infringement, as well as our friend mentioned, the lack of differentiation for music and other categories. Now, I haven't heard much from either the governor's office or Representative Devlin. So, as I'm sure he just explained, it's a work in progress. And I'm just curious if you know if there is a process for having feedback like this be visible throughout the process for a citizen who, submits ideas or is interested in revisions. What is the process for managing that?
So I can speak to some bills that I've written there. If you look at the San Andreas Board of Medicine, which is a bill I pushed last legislature and also is being amended this legislature. There's a lot of conversations that happen in the background where the interested parties or the people that are, kind of the decision makers as to what's required and have the vision for what needs to be accomplished in terms of pushing a bill. Have these conversations, and I'm sure you're well aware of that, being an ex-state representative yourself. There's lots of conversations that happen in the background, and then once it's kind of ripe or ready to go, then it is published at that time. So I've rarely seen public forums when it comes to getting a bill, but getting a bill going. But I can tell you that as state representatives, we do go out and talk to the vested parties and kind of poll the audience and see what kind of opinions we can garner. And when you write a bill, you're never going to hit 100%. Not everybody's going to be satisfied as to the contents of the bill, but the main goal here is to try and satisfy as many people as you can in one go, right? And you'll never get 100 on that. So I can't speak to this particular Copyright Act. Representative Devlin is continuing work on it, and I'm sure that he will, without putting words in his mouth, but he will definitely poll the audience and bring the people at the table to have these discussions.
Absolutely, Representative. Thank you. I just want to note, you did mention I was a state representative for 3 terms. And, I was often on the phone with the public. I was just startled to see revisions go without comment for so long since, in the creation of agencies like SAS or the Troopers, we had the legislative infrastructure to basically hotfix legislation immediately after publication. And I'm curious what you think the roadblock is with the current legislation being able to do that.
Well, we, it's not an excuse making exercise, but I'm going to tell you, we've had a bit of a rough go this term. Everybody knows it's been highly publicized. We had some representatives, Norman Aoki, who was speaker, and then Morgan Ford, who was secretary, both left pretty much at the same time. And it kind of left us in a, I don't want to say in a rut, but kind of left us in a hard place there with Tavlar, going through the article of impeachment. So essentially, Tavlar, and without speaking on his behalf, had went through certain things, and he assures us that now he is back at work and working for the people. However, that kind of left Yuri and I to keep the legislature going. So it was a 2-person show for a long while, and we're grateful to have Sir Valentino and Mr. Taylor now join us to continue the work. But there's been, I don't want to say we came to a full stop, but we definitely slowed down a lot this term to try and get stuff done, just due to not having a lot of people to do the work that we want to be doing. There's only a certain amount of hours in a day for us to get this done.
Absolutely, that's understandable. I have one more follow-up question, and then I'll cede the floor. Mr. Devlin, when it comes to the work-in-progress version of this legislation, the legislation as it currently stands does not specify to whom the penalties for copyright infringement go to. If it's the government, the Board of Education, the police. Do you have any clarity on where that stands in the current version of this legislation?
As of right now, I don't have any comment on that. I'm more working towards the wording regarding the copywriting of beats or the different styles of music that people produce.
Of course. Thank you.
One more question retaining to HR 246, specifically Section 10, the civil remedies. Number 4 in there lists out attorney fees and costs. I'm just curious on why it's listed inside of this legislation when typically in the state attorney's fees is not something available to be sued for. If this can be something that's be opened up to all civil litigation or just specifically copyright infringement.
What section was that in again?
It's Section 10. It's 10A4. It's attorney fees and costs. We can't sue for attorney fees on like anything inside of the state, so I was just curious. And there's specific case law actually citing that we can't sue for attorney fees.
I'm just reading this really quick. So, when this was brought forward, I believe it was then Speaker Norman who brought this forward with the help of now Carmen Brown. This is really early into my term, as I was brought in late, so I never had a chance to fully read the bills before I voted on them. But pointing this out, it's definitely something that I'm going to add to my list of changes I want to see made to this bill.
Any other questions directed to any members present or any concerns that need to be brought forward?
Maxine Finch, Weasel News. I'm unsure if there are any high command and any Leo departments here today. This is a general question for them and perhaps even their representatives. We've seen in the last month and two constant power outages from across the state. I was wondering if there's been any affirmative action or any action at all towards stopping this. There's plenty of rumors on the street, but it seems as though at times when these blackouts happen, there seems to be no rush to stop them or prevent them again. Any comments?
So currently at this time, within terms of the power outage, there's not much to say whether it is intentional or it has something to do with the electrical system. That is not something we can determine at this time. In terms of stopping them, if anyone on the streets have assumptions or anything that indicates why these are happening, they're more than welcome to come and forward it to LEOs and MCD, and we can look into it more thoroughly. But currently at this time, there's nothing to say indication whether it's purpose or it's accidental.
When these power outages first began several months ago, there were multiple accounts of individuals walking into Palmer's power station, and several officers were present at that time. So there has been no clear. So there's no clear understanding who's doing it. Then you say?
When we're not going to make assumptions of what is happening. I'm not particularly aware of that particular incident, so it may be a question to ask at a later date once we look more into it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're just pausing to see if there's any more regarding that topic. All right, the floor is still open. If there's anybody else that has any questions, comments, concerns, or anything to address in a public format.
Actually, while we have you available to speak to representatives of LEO, I've been running Clout Magazine for about 2 years now, and I have spoken to various members of high command throughout that time about a media outreach program or really any sort of effort on PD to provide more forward-facing presence Can you provide any update on that plan or what the situation is internally right now?
So currently, oh, do you want to take this one, Stan?
Yeah. So sorry. So generally speaking, obviously the command teams over the last quite few months have changed quite a bit. So we have been working on a community outreach program that is under the supervision of Lieutenant Agrilegra Scott, and with that there have been some works behind the scenes in regards of community outreach and media outreach. There have been some updates. We've also been trying it as well from the at least the LSPD and from the most department side. We've been trying to host or trying to get in contact with the press a bit more to be a bit more transparent about changes, questions concern anything like that. But if possible, stay if we can quickly stay back after the meeting and possible try to arrange a further meeting of this.
Absolutely.
Maxine Finch, Weasel News. Are there any major areas of focus that'll be focused on, really looked at with the criminal code updates?
One of them that is, and I can speak for what I'm working on, and the representatives, if they're also working on any other bills, then they can speak to what they're working on. But essentially, I'm looking at one right now that has to do with a penalty modifier for people that would escape custody from the hospital if they're under arrest, but they are not medically discharged from the hospital. They are put into, from my understanding, a secure area of the hospital, which are usually what we call, and I say we because obviously, as you all know, I'm a doctor at the Pillbox, but they're put in a secure area of the hospital with locked doors, which are police hold rooms. So nobody is supposed to get out of the police hold rooms until the police basically deem that their hold is either over or they come and process them for an arrest. So essentially, if people do manage somehow to escape that, there would be a modifier to the escape custody charge. So that's one I'm working on in terms of crim code update.
Doesn't that modifier already exist?
Not from the hospital.
Why would it not exist? Any crime committed on hospital grounds has a modifier.
Yes, but not on the charge itself.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. I'm actually the person who wrote the legislation about the way the hospital charge works, which is inherently any charge has a 2x multiplier. So I'm sorry, is this like a new specific charge for that instance of behavior?
This specifically deals with the charge of escaping police custody. If they are arrested and they're aware they're arrested and they're put in a secure facility and they escape it, that's where the modifier would basically kick in.
Right, so that would be covered escaping police custody. I mean, wouldn't that just be evading or something already in the criminal code that would be subject to the modifier that already exists?
Well, it would be escaping custody with the modifier. That
Or does the
exists.
modifier stack?
Are there any plans to look at security at the prison or any instances where prisons might escape custody, or is it solely the focus of the hospital at this time?
Right now, the focus is on the hospital itself, because there's been, from what I'm told, some instances, and I'm not going to speak to it because police would know a lot more about this than me, but there's been instances where people have either by force or other means managed to leave the hospital without notifying the police.
So I guess to circle back on the hospital question, the question would be if you're modifying escaping custody, but there's already an existing modifier for hospital related charges, does it preclude the hospital modifier that already exists?
The hospital modifier, from the understanding that we have, is that the hospital modifier is there for people walking in, let's say, and shooting up the hospital or doing some crime against the hospital itself or inside the hospital itself. The escape police custody modifier is specifically for people that are under arrest and know they're under arrest and they're in a secure part of the hospital and escape that part of the hospital. So it's not necessarily a crime against hospital. It's basically they're escaping police custody from a secure facility or secure area of the hospital.
Yeah, but the hospital modifier isn't for only crimes against the hospital. It's any crime on hospital grounds. Doesn't have to be against the hospital. It could be against another individual of the public or, essentially a victimless crime like escaping custody, vandalism, any of those.
All right. Well, it's still under development. I can definitely bring it back to the review committee and see what the thought process on that is, and talk to the DOJ as well, like we did in the first iteration of it.
If I may, does the legislature regularly review with lawyers who are not part of the DOJ?
Like private firms is what you mean?
Oh, PDO, private firms. For instance, when I was writing the penal code, I would work with private firms like Paxton and Paxton Associates.
I can tell you PDO and DOJ are definitely consulted. Private firms, not so much.
May I ask why?
It's not something that's been, how do I word this? It's not something that I was either taught or told that, it's a must-do checkbox to pass a legislative bill that has to do with the criminal code. It has to do with the review committee, which has, members of law enforcement and also PDO and DOJ. But that does not mean that, we should not do it, is what I'm saying.
Of course. I mean, now that I've brought the possibility up, I'm sure you can see why it could be helpful.
Oh yeah, I could see added value, 100%.
To be fair to the legislators, any private attorney can register to work with the Penal Code Committee. Most of us just don't.
You don't?
Correct. I haven't worked with the Penal Code Committee in probably 4 months. I haven't really had any inherent problems with what the Penal Code Committee is doing right now. So. I believe Macklemore could weigh in on that more. I think he put an announcement out to all lawyers about signing up for the Penal Code Committee, or it might have been Tarts.
I see Mr. Tarts is in the room. I don't know if he can speak to that point or.
Not in pertaining to my job specifically, but the Penal Code Committee itself hasn't had an official sittings in this term, as it hasn't been called to session. And as a magistrate, I would no longer be qualified to sit on it. And there was only 2 of us that were remaining, was me and Adrian Jacks. Nothing's happened this term on that.
All right. Well, to any lawyers in the room, feel free to sign up, then revive that thing and help us make sure that what we write is, acceptable and falls within every standard of the law. I don't know if Representative Taylor or Representative Devlin are working on law type bills at this point. I don't believe so, but I don't want to speak on their behalf.
Not at the moment.
And anything I'm working on is very early on and hasn't had the need to be brought to anybody.
Okay, so that's the one for now that should be the next one coming out. But I welcome your ideas for sure. Send them my way before we publicize it. All right. Anything else to bring up?
It has been Maxine Finch, Weasel News. It has been a week since 256 was passed, a resolution to renew legislative employment transparency. I was wondering if the Secretary of the Legislature has been able to create the forum and/or website yet revolving around each government official and their positions across the state.
So the 256 is primarily for the state representatives, so the people of the public can see who each one of us works for. So that way, there's no speaking from behind people's backs of any kind of favoritism. I recently got everyone's current jobs, so I'm working on getting those filed into the appropriate place.
All right, thank you.
Another quick question for our LEO representatives while they are available. Does the LSPD track the amount of time the lobby is staffed and able to take concerns from the public, provide licenses, take reports, etc.?
So, unless someone sends this, I can answer this one. So a lot of the times, we are relying on our dispatch admin assistants and their capability of what can be done. In terms of complaints, sometimes it will require just a 311, and we will do our best to respond. Sometimes we do struggle to respond depending on how many units we have available at that time. Sometimes we have a quiet shift. Sometimes, recently, it's been a very chaotic shift, and we've been stretched very thin in some cases. So it really is just depending on the time, but a 311 at the station, and we'll do our best to get to them. I hope that answers your question.
And I appreciate that. But the question was, do you track windows of inactivity or inability to answer complaints?
No, we don't track those kind of windows. However, like Lieutenant Lamb already said, we're trying our best to be available at all times. Unfortunately, this is Los Santos, and we can never really predict what is happening in the city. And if calls are out there going on, that takes our priority. However, we have been trying to staff our sub-departments, such as the administrative assistants or the dispatcher department. So someone, like, we're trying to staff it for the most part that someone is always going to be available at the lobby, but unfortunately it is not possible at all times due to things that just happen in the city.
Of course. And a quick follow-up question as well. I have heard many reports from the public at this point that they're going to court or they do a FOIA, and there are many cases where the paperwork is a work in progress or otherwise not completed. In the case that a member of the public encounters this, what course of action would you recommend?
In regards of if they file a FOIA and the report isn't there or isn't written, or
yes, basically if they are affected by incomplete paperwork, unsubmitted reports, essentially the file may be created, but all details are just work in progress.
So overall, obviously, we try our best always to, stay on top of those things, such as paperwork, because it's in the end part of our job. We are trying to keep eyes on that ourselves, trying to remind ourselves to be fulfilling those duties, which is also considered paperwork. If someone bumps into such a report, then they're more than happy to reach out to one of their supervisors at the station and just bring this up so we can look further into it. On the other side, though, I also have to say that with the amount of calls that are happening, obviously, yes, on one side, it's our job to fulfill that paperwork. I'm not too sure in what regards. I can't really, say a unique or like a general something about every single incident, because every single incident is unique. But we try our best to find these reports. We have a team specifically designated to go through the reports and coach the officers that are that where the reports are coming up. We're actively working on it. This is as much as I can say on it. However, you also need to think that calls out there when someone is in danger, life's in danger, still take priority, regardless.
Thank you.
And actually following up to what Beck said. So what happens if you contact one of the officers after an incident had happened and you told them that you wanted to pursue further legal action? Then they tell you to submit a form and then you hear back that there was no paperwork done.
And you want to take this one, Stan?
No, go ahead.
In that case of if I can just ask a follow-up question on that, you're asking if the paperwork is not done and you are trying to pursue further legal action. Is
Where
that
they
the question?
can't find any sort
Okay.
of report on what had happened. Yes.
Okay. So in that case, what as referring of similar to what Assistant Chief Stan already stated prior, is to come and file a complaint to the supervisors and the commands to the regarding the officer that took the complaint, and obviously explain your situation, and then they can look into it further and handle it and address it as it needs to be addressed.
I mean no disrespect, but don't you think it's a little strange that the onus of correcting paperwork that should have been filed about a criminal incident is on the person or the family of the person who were aggressed upon?
Can you add more clarification to your question on that?
I mean, your advice is essentially to go to the police station, which you admit you have no idea what windows of opportunity you are missing for having someone there to file complaints, and that the best advice you have is to try 311, which is often, and I'm sure you would agree, not exactly a quick solution, and essentially remind the officer to file paperwork about the crime. I mean, I don't mean any disrespect, but if someone had to show up at my job to tell me to file my paperwork, I would be out of business. It would be seen as unacceptable. So I guess I'm just confused as to why that's the standard for LEO right now.
So I think you may be misunderstanding of what I was saying. In terms of if the paperwork has been missed and it's not been filed, sometimes, and this falls under the internal matters that we don't discuss on, it isn't as simple as make sure you get this done. Depending on the situation and the severity of the situation, whether a little thing was missed, which doesn't happen that often, because Assistant Chief Stan says we have a whole team designated to going through reports to make sure they're all to standard. And to make sure all forensics has been filed. My solution to your problem isn't to come and get a reminder, it's to file an official complaint regarding that, so we are aware of that issue, so those matters can be addressed correctly. Without the necessary form of addressing them, we can't address without knowing that particular incident.
I'm going to interject here because the incident that happened with me, my husband was almost killed. Someone ran him over right in front of the police. I caught up to the police and asked them specifically what I could do moving forward to figure out who the fuck almost killed my husband. They knew that I wanted the information. They sent me the form, told me to fill it out, and then from there it's been crickets. So to me, if somebody didn't file their paperwork correctly when I specifically said that I wanted to figure out who the people were who hit my husband, I feel like that's completely unacceptable. There should be no excuse why that wasn't done.
So to follow on that, correct, and I am sorry that that happened to you and your husband. If you would like to meet with me after City Hall, we can sit down and we can go over the incident and we can get the officers involved, and then I can start tracking it down from there and file it to the correct teams. Is that something you'd be looking for, to do?
Of course, but I
Okay.
think just moving forward, I just don't understand why cops aren't doing their job to fill out the paperwork. I understand that you guys are swamped, but that's a part of your fucking job.
You are correct that it is part of
I
our
am
job.
correct. There should
Yes,
be no
you are
buts.
correct.
There should
Okay,
be no
I'm
buts, though.
in a respectful term, I'm not trying to or say that you are in the wrong, because you are not. It is part of our job to file the paperwork, especially if somebody's been arrested or somebody has been a victim of a crime. Now, we do our very best, and 99% of the officers do their very, very best. So, if we can meet after this, we can go over this incident and we can get to the bottom of it. And any other further incidents from this, we can take this constructively. They can come and file it to me personally or anybody at the station. I'm 90% of the time available, and we can get to the bottom of it and handle those situations with those problem officers. Not every officer does that. Barely any officers do that, and any officer that we are aware of does get handled internally.
Maxine Finch, Weasel News. How much time each week would you estimate is spent on the oversight of paperwork, and what percentage/number of members of the department is responsible for performing these checks?
So, in terms to, I may have to ask to reiterate on the second part of the question, but can you just say the first part for me again, just to make sure I answer it correctly?
How much time each week would you estimate is spent on the oversight of paperwork?
I think that's not an easy number to give because it really depends on the situations that have happened that day, the number of units, and who's been involved. So in terms of to give you an accurate time, I wouldn't say that I would be able to do that for you because I can only really speak for me personally, and that really depends on the type of either cases I'm handling or the type of patrol scenes that I've handled that day. In terms of the members, there is quite a few members that are already seeking out and checking down the reports and forensics to make sure everything has been filed in the given time that law enforcement have been given. I hope that answers both your questions. If I did miss a bit, please let me know.
Hi, this is Chief Lee, LSPD. I can elaborate on that. We have a specific auditing team of at least 6 members of LEO constantly going over reports, addressing these issues with the officers that have not filed these reports or incomplete reports. We look at it very seriously. We understand the gravity of incomplete reports. And I'm giving you my word that we have a team that overlooks this daily. We have auditing sheets compiled over the last year overseeing all these reports. When I hear of officers that are not filing reports and the complaints from the public about this, I'm not happy, and I know that you are not happy. And we look at this very, very seriously. It does not get thrown under the carpet or anything like that. We don't brush it aside. It's a serious offense within the department internally.
Thank you, Chief Lee. Another question, unrelated. Recently, I spoke with someone who had been charged with trespassing at Humane Labs. However, when we looked over his security agreement, Humane Lab is not listed on the parole list for government facilities. Any comments on that?
So I'm not aware of the matter. Or up to date on the matter. I don't know the ins and outs on that one. So for me to, for us here, unless we were personally involved to give you an insight on that, there's not much we can do in terms of that. So comments on that, not as much. Whether Humane Labs counts as a government facility or not, I do believe that was addressed on the court docket and reference to legislation. So I would probably refer you over to that side. But on our side, there's not much comment on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Last call. Any other questions, comments, or concerns that want to be brought up by either members of the public or any agency? All right, at this time, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this meeting. I think it's the strongest attendance that I've seen here in recent memory. So thanks for everybody taking the time to show up. There is some catering at the end of the table there by Ari's Deli. So feel free to grab a bite to eat on your way out if you want. And we'll see you in a month for the next town hall. Thanks, everyone.